Welcome back to the As Told By You podcast. We are joined today by my friend Lee. He runs a company called Something Borrowed that they do tents and tent rentals and other rentals. And I want to talk to him about things like how does a rental company get through a pandemic, that type of stuff. So we want to sort of see, he's been in business a really long time, and we're going to talk to him about all that. So Lee, thank you. Welcome.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So
excited.
Tell me how you got into tents. So I know you were a banker, and
Banking tents.
How does someone go from banking to tents? How does that work?
So I get asked this a lot. I first started, when I was in college, I was a jewelry salesman, and I sold jewelry for about 3.5 years. But I also have a degree in computer programming, so I have a computer programming degree. So it's a little weird. I was a baseball player with a computer programming degree selling jewelry. So I kind of had a mix of stuff, and then at some point, my then girlfriend said I needed to get a real job. And so then I moved into banking in Atlanta, which was not fun. Atlanta is the fraud capital of the East, so it's not a good industry to be in. But I kind of enjoyed the money part. I think we all like money and dealing with it, and that was a lot of fun. I then moved with my then fiance up here. She was getting her master's at USC, so I came up here, got back into banking, but I came up here. I didn't know anybody. I don't have family up here, didn't have friends up here. I knew really zero people. So what I had to do was actually got involved with all these groups, Lions Club, Rotary, all this, and what they took part of were events and festivals and things like that. And so how I met a lot of my clients at the time were actually helping out with these festivals and things. So go a few years past that, I got into the financial services business. I was an Edward Jones advisor for a couple years and did stocks, did the same thing, started helping with events. I ended up starting a group called the Lexington Young Professionals in Lexington. We actually took over an event called, I think it was Kids Fest or something like that had been around for a while. It had kind of failed. Well, we took it over as a group, and next thing I know, I'm managing a festival and having a great time at it. So I finally just had to say, I think a lot of us may have said at some point, how do I make a living at this that I really like? I don't really like this other thing, but it pays the bills. So I finally got a phone call from Edward Jones that in the securities business, you have to disclose everything. So if you make money from anywhere, you have to disclose it, make sure there's no conflicts. Well, of course, I disclose, hey, I'm making $5 from running a festival, and I get the phone call, and they say, well, what's this all about? We really don't like you doing that. And I said, okay, well, I meet all my clients here, so that's not good. And in a joking way, because I certainly don't ever like to burn bridges, I said, well, if you were a girlfriend, we'd have broke up a long time ago because you really haven't done much for me. And they laughed, and I said, I had been thinking about somehow figuring out how to get into the event business. I just didn't know how to make a living out of it, which, a lot of folks in our industry still trying to figure that out. Yeah. And so anyway, it forced me to kind of jump in, and I started my first company called Event Management back in that day, and I would manage festivals for Lexington and Irma and surrounding areas. And then finally I got hit with the reality of rentals were the better option, the safer option when it comes to making money. As in, if you ran an event, the rental guys don't care how, and I say this lovingly, our money's not based off how successful your event is. So if I run an event, no one comes, the rental guys are still getting paid. So when I ran an Oktoberfest event, Oktoberfest is known for the big tents. And back in those days, Celebrations was the tent rental company I used. And that event got destroyed because of Missouri came into the SEC conference and they changed the football schedule. So I got hit with a home game. No one came to my festival. I lost a lot of money, but yet my bill was still $15,000 from Celebrations for the tents. And right then I said, I'm in the wrong side of this. I said, the next day I brought in my staff. I said, we're no longer a event management company. We're actually a rental company. And I actually bought into Celebrations and learned the rental game, and haven't looked back.
I guess there's a lot fewer moving parts in the rental part of it,
Well, there's more things you can control.
Right.
Manage. I have the utmost respect for event planners and things like that, because it's a very hard job. It's it's a thankless job, because if things go right, no one notices, right? And
but if things go wrong, you get the
so there's a lot of risk involved, because if it goes wrong, you get a lot of risk. If it goes right, you get nothing. So.
Right.
Rentals, I find you can do as much planning and being helpful as you want to, but at the end of the day, you're an order taker. It's, we want this, you provide that. Now, if you want to go further and say, however, my experience tells me you might want to do this. I mean, so that's something you can add. So you can kind of get the benefit of being a planner without having the risk of your livelihood going out the window.
But it's interesting that you got to this current thing based on the Better Business Plan, right? Where a lot of event people don't do it that way. They don't say, this is the better business I should be in.
Yeah.
They say, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I love doing. I need to figure out where the money is eventually, but they don't get into it saying, hey, videography is a great way to make money. That's where I should do that. And I think that's where a lot of us fall kind of behind. They get the business going, and then they, oh no, I've got to make money at it too. I love doing the work, and that's great, but I've also got to make money at it. And I like the idea that you approached it. You feel like your banking background kind of helped you feel that part of it out?
Yeah, so I get asked, Lee, would you do it over again? And I say definitely, I absolutely would. And I'm sure we'll discuss this, but relationships is what it's all about, and having, you don't mess with people's money. I mean, that's just something that and so in order to deal with people's money, you have to have a good relationship. So I learned how to build those relationships with these people to tell me about how far in debt you are. It's kind of you kind of have to know that person to open up, and so I've been able to take that into this world, and it's been good.
Well, tell me without getting in too deep into it, how did you go from Celebrations to Something Borrowed? Where did Something Borrowed come from?
So this is where I'll be kind. So I bought in as a minor partner into Celebrations with the ambition of eventually buying it fully, and we were working towards that. Celebrations, in my opinion, was kind of the dirty rental company that needed some help, and I actually picked Celebrations because of that. I could have targeted the other guy because there was two at that time. One was fairly successful, one, in my opinion, was not, and at least in the wedding world. And I picked them because they needed the help. I knew I could make an impact. It was cheaper to buy in, all that kind of stuff. So I picked Celebrations, got in there. Really, I think maybe we were at 700,000 or 800,000 in gross sales, and in 2 years we're at 1.3 million. With our name rising in the ranks of we're no longer the dirty rental company now, kind of new management, and I was able to do that. Well, the unfortunate part sometimes about having a partner is, if it's in their advantage to sell at the opportune time. Well, I just raised the stature of this business, and then our competition goes, oh, they're a threat, we need to buy them out. They come to me and I say, absolutely not. I've got some momentum going against you, and then they just circumvent me and go to the major partner. So,
Gotcha.
So they bought it, kind of sold it from under me. I wasn't happy. I'm a fairly hot-headed guy back in the day.
But there's no more Celebrations, right?
There is no Celebrations.
Right.
Yeah. So I took the money from.
COVID killed Celebrations, people. No Celebrations.
So when that was about 5 years ago, and my competitor bought Celebrations pretty much to take out, because again there was only two companies, took them out. They thought they would do it. Well, what that did, though, what they didn't see is it unleashed me, because I said I did not agree with the plan. So it unleashed me from any non-competes, any of those kind of things. So I took my money and opened up Something Borrowed, did not lose any clients that I wanted to. Right. And my competitor has since said it was the worst mistake they've made in 50 years.
Yeah. How is that the worst mistake in their 50 years?
Yeah, but well, I think because of the loss of the amount of money they had to spend to do that buyout, which ultimately did not get them what they wanted. It got them nothing. It really just unleashed me, which I did better than what I would have there. So they, in a sense, paid a lot of money to get hurt even more. And
so they had assumed they would buy it out and then get all the clients from.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they would assume that would happen. They would rule the roost for a couple years at least, with no competition in a capital city. Right. And little Lee said, "Not on my watch."
Well, I think your approach is really interesting, because I know that on our end of our business, I look at the other folks in town that make videos. And I don't necessarily look at them as quite as competitively, I think, as that you look at the competition in the rental business, which I think is just probably a key to your success, and the reason why you've been going so long is that you are constantly thinking about that. I think our approach of, there's room for everybody and rising tide raises all ships and all that stuff is fine, but I think that's because we come to it from a craft. Like, we just love making videos, and it's not as much from
So you had mentioned that in some cases you're an order taker, right? Glorified order taker. I mean, you need the relationship component for people to trust you guys and know your brand and want to come and use you over the other guy. But there is a specific, I can get a white tent from Lee, or I can get a white tent from the other guy. Right, so I'm picking Lee because I like him and I like his company, like his brand.
Also, you trust
our competition, there's a aesthetic appeal to it.
Right.
So we don't do the same things as other
That's right. You have a
videographers
different spin or
do.
Different flavor on how it looks.
Because there's an art, even though in a lot of cases we are, especially during this time, there's not a lot of art left in what we're doing. It's a lot of people need to communicate, and we're providing that communication. Now, when we get into commercials and we get to explore our writing techniques and our creativity comes out, then that's what we bring to the table, our uniqueness. And another artist brings their uniqueness.
And that's why I would argue that folks like us, that we really have the same stuff. I mean, it's a white tent. I was joking with a car guy a while back. He said, the car industry has changed so much in 100 years, and and we were talking about tents, and I said, tents haven't changed since Jesus. I mean, it's the same. It's a canopy and some poles. And so, when we all kind of have the same stuff in the rental business, or we can get the same stuff, it's not like they're building some sort of unique item and renting it. So we have to be even more competitive because we have the same items. We all have the same stuff. Right. Whereas artists and things like that, you kind of have a specialized thing, as one of a kind, that you can kind of go out there and
But
say.
I'm assuming it doesn't become a price war, like your advantage is you're cheaper, but there's got to be some intangible there that you guys provide, and that's got to be those relationships that you're talking about.
It is. And so what I try to do, so when I was in banking, one of the big things I did was I was in charge of bringing in business accounts and things like that. And I learned real fast that it's the other spheres that you operate in that can help with that sphere. For example, if you were going after a business account and I don't know, you just were in a Lions Club and said, and you knew this business, they really wanted to get their word out, and you want to stick them in front of these groups that you can wave your hand and make happen. So I'm helping you, let me get this account. So I always went out, I try to help people, I try to help get you business or get you money before they even came to me. Yeah. So I do the more, I try to help you first, and then that go ahead and solidifies the relationship, and then you use me, because quite frankly, if you don't, you'll feel bad. I mean, you're right, because I just helped you out. Now you're not going to help me.
Because you give first. You give first before you
ask.
Yeah,
I like to give first, and it screws you sometimes. But But then you just make them feel bad about it, and they'll come back around. So, I mean,
Well, but I think personality is such a big differentiator, and obviously, what we do, we can adapt our work to whatever you want, right? And it's so if you're looking for a certain style, we can do whatever style, that especially like Brian said, especially now, we're just doing whatever anybody wants to do, right? It's not about us and our personality, but I think when the work is commoditized to the point that yours is, where like you said, it's white tint. It's so much about personality, because they need to like working with you and your people, and you need to present the right people to the client so that they trust that the people are going to get the work done. And
well, events are very unique, I think, because it's a reflection of you, right? If you have a party at your house, or at least for me, one of my biggest fears is someone's going to have a bad time, and that's a reflection on you. It's not the party; it's you. It's your party. So a wedding or even a festival, a big festival, but you're in charge and something goes wrong, it goes back on you, not the festival. And so people are very, very in tune to who, they need people they trust to make sure that they don't look bad. And so events, I guess the easiest way, again, events are a reflection of you personally. It's not an item. If you created a commercial, they might say, well, that commercial was bad. In my opinion, if an event goes bad, they go, oh, that event's not bad. They go, that planner was bad, or whoever did that tent is terrible. And so events are unique in terms, especially weddings, right? I mean, people, a lot of people, they dream of these events for a long time, and all of a sudden, they're inviting all their family, all their friends. They're all saying, this is your big day. And next thing you know, you've got people in there that because they give you $5 off, you think they're going to use that. No, they're going to go with who they trust, for the most part.
Right.
But I mean, you do get, there's different, again, my banking background, I love changing tactics up when it comes to competition. I mean, if 1 month you just want to lowball people and then they have no idea what you're doing, because I think changing up when it comes to competing is good, because then they can't react, or they react slow.
Right.
Especially with bigger companies, because they can't react fast at all. And so that's one of our advantages, is we're local. It's just me that owns it. I don't have to committee to go through or anything.
Well, that's an interesting aspect of it too, because you can't necessarily cover quite as much ground, but the ground you can cover a little bit more.
We're
directly.
a little unique too, because we, a lot of people may have asked you before, like, if you could do it all over again, what would you do different? Well, I got that shot that a lot of people don't, because at celebrations I pretty much got unleashed with no handcuffs, and here's some money, go start over and do it again. So the biggest thing I changed was we're not open to the public. We don't allow. You can't just rent 10 chairs and come to me. Like we actually do all our own deliveries. We pick who our clients are.
Yeah.
So then who's your audience?
Our audience, I'll say in a general sense, that good people hang out with good people and bad people hang out with bad people. We want the good people. And so
But who's your client? Like who are you talking to at all of these networking things? Yeah. Like, can I now that we're friends and buddies, can I go and say, hey, I need a tent?
Sure. Yeah. So influential people usually are who I go after.
So then, of course, then I would be.
Yeah.
He's a mogul.
You rule the media world, so it's good. Yeah. No, of course, the planners, the venues, and all those people. We don't like the one time thing. And I've always told folks it's hard. People say, Lee, why don't you do? Because I think 65% of our business is non-weddings, and people say, well, why don't you go after more weddings? Because the profit margin is better in weddings. And I just say, because I like being rewarded for doing a good job. If I do a good job for a bride, if everything works out, I'm never going to see them again. If I do a bad job, either I get the same outcome. You go to Lexa Medical Center and you do a job for them, you do a good job, you get rewarded with another job down the road. So I like getting more business by doing a good job. So we love our brides, we love those things, but that's why we go after the planners, because I can get another job because I did a good job. I go to Grant and he refers me a tent for a bride that he's working with or something like that. I do a good job, make him look good. He's going to get me another one. So we go after people that have the potential to do multiple rentals with us versus just the bride. So we really don't go after just the bride. which is the same reason we don't market to the public. We don't know we can't really filter who we're may be getting if we do that.
Well, so parlaying off that question, obviously relationships that you already have are the biggest bringer of business. Do you market to get new relationships with people?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, we still do. It's more of not the individual client, but the vendors. And so there's always new vendors popping up. I mean, there's always new wedding planners. There's always new whoever. We love to market to them. So whether it's hosting an event, we hosted an event last week that we invited a lot of the younger wedding planners just starting, and we didn't want the old ones. They've got it. They made it right. We want the young ones because they don't have the resources or the context yet. So what a great opportunity to be in front of them. Two is anytime you can provide some education, there's some value, right? So if I can sit there and talk about different tents that all these other folks, you're an old dog, you know everything. So I can't really educate you, but if you get some of the new ones in there, that's a value, and that goes back to the almost I'm giving you something. Yeah, and they know that I'm giving them something for free, and then hopefully get rewarded with business. So we go after the new ones, of course the existing ones. Try to convert some that aren't on the right path.
Because I think in the event business, the wedding business especially, you get your sort of stable of vendors that you like to work with,
Sure.
Especially if you're a planner or a venue.
Where's the camera? I love them all.
We all love them all. But I think it's interesting that there's always those opportunities, and I think about new venues, especially new venues, when new venues open, you wonder, like, sort of, is that relationship worth like spending time and money to try to pursue? Because who knows whether that's going to work out for any of us.
So I have a fairly easy way, because venues pop up and go away all the time. I'm a tent guy.
Right.
So if there is a tent opportunity at that venue, then that's the ones we go after. The venues that, let's say big venues that have their own stuff, well, I don't care about it so much because there's not much I can do there. As long as my competition doesn't see this, I would say that I go after the tent because I've always believed that if you can get the tent, you get everything else.
Right.
My competition, who I am not going to correct, they lead with the pretty stuff. They lead with the linens or lighting or something like that. So I have one in particular that loves linens. They just love the linen. And I love linens too, but that's the icing on the cake, right? So I can still get the cake and they can just do the icing. So they lead with that, and I've gotten plenty of jobs that way. Well, I'm getting linens from here. I'm like, great, good. Because linens, here's a secret, ladies and gentlemen. We don't make money on linens in the rental business. Now, whether my competition knows that or not, I hope they don't. But like, when it comes to dishes and linens, there's so much involved with the cleaning of that stuff. There's no money there.
And then I'm assuming the inventorying and keeping track of
Oh,
it.
and just you keeping the thousands of different style linens. And I can carry every color linen available. And next spring they'll come out with some new color, give it a fancy name, and that's the one I don't have, and that's the one all the brides want. So it's a very hard business to be in, and you don't make any money, but they lead with that.
Right.
Well, great. They can keep that. There's core products, tents, tables, chairs, and you do a crap ton of it, and just push it. And if you get those things, you'll get the rest.
Right.
And back to the marketing on weddings. And again, I'm always want to separate. There's weddings and non-weddings.
Yeah.
So there's different approaches to both. But with weddings, brides are price sensitive at the same time to relationships. And
Right.
so usually if they have a wedding planner they've already built rapport with, they'll just believe what they say, right? So they really don't need a relationship as long as they have a relationship to get referred.
And you need the relationship with the planner.
That's exactly right. And so, in my opinion, the brides are still price sensitive, like most of us are when we're buying big things. I'm going to get an opportunity to quote that wedding regardless.
Right.
So even though we do some of these bridal shows, I do it more just so my competition sees me there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's really because I know I'm going to get the bride, whether I'm there or not. Because even if you speak to a bride, they're going to go, oh, great, I love this, but I'm going to price check them, and they're going to check the other tent company. So I'll get it regardless. If I get you on the phone, I got a good shot at you.
Yeah.
But So I'm not really worried about marketing so much to the individual bride, because I feel like I'm going to get a shot anyway, just because they're usually price sensitive, or if the relationship will dictate where it goes. It's the other way that you have to be on your game all the time and checking in and send them a little something every now and then, send them some flowers.
Right. So that was going to be my next question: is what is your way do you maintain connection with your regular clients?
It's the same.
Emails. Is it what? How do you?
It's the same way that you keep your friends your friends. It's the exact same way, right? So you've got some buddies you hang out with, I'm sure. It's the same way. You got to go see them every once in a while. You got to call them every once in a while. You got to do those things. I try to say that sales is nothing hard but making friends. That's all it is. And don't lead with a sale. Like, go in there and actually have a genuine interest in people. I mean, sales is really not hard, y'all. Like, just go in there and say, if you like the guy, just talk to somebody. Like, hey, we could be friends, great. And eventually, and I did this all the time in the banking world, I wouldn't wear a name tag. I wouldn't, a lot of folks in the corporate world say, go there, handshake, business card, right? I absolutely, when I ran this Lexington Young Professionals group, I had 400 members. And so usually they were younger, 21 to 45. And I would tell them, don't listen to that. I think it doesn't work, because here's what happens. Great to see you, name, okay, in the trash, right? Like, that doesn't work. Go in there in a little group of people and just start talking and see who you can connect with. And eventually they're going to go, what do you do? Like, and then finally you're like, oh, well, I'm a banker, or I'm an investment guy. And they go, oh, well, you've already built the rapport. We're already friends. We're talking. And you didn't lead with, I know you don't want anything from me because you didn't lead with it, right? Yeah. And next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, I've got an old 401k. I need something. Oh, great. It's very easy if you do it that way. And so it's nothing more than just like you do with your friends. Every once in a while, you got to call them. Every once in a while, you got to go hang out and just check in with them. If you hear they're sick, call them, or send them a text. Say, hey, I heard you're sick. How do you feel better? And that's all it is. You don't necessarily want something all the time, because that's what they're getting from the other guys. Like, they're getting called, they're getting those things when they want something. Hey, here's a card. Please call me and give me some business. You know what I mean? Not act like you don't want it. Act like you're like, hey, just say, hey, you doing okay? Great. Happy Easter, whatever. So
it's a very old school way of doing business.
That's where it is.
And I love that idea. I hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk about this all the time, that your grandparents are more prepared to do business in the modern era than you are, because they just want to maintain relationships. Yeah. And then that's so important. And we hear you talk about the fact that relationships and referrals are how you get most of your business. Yeah. And there's a way to make that happen. There's a way to keep that up. And I think that's some great stuff. Let's talk about 2020 though, because that's an interesting element to the rental business.
I had erased it from my memory, but I'll bring it back.
Especially because you say 65% of your business is corporate events, which are not quite happening at this point. So how have you adapted to that situation, and what's kind of the current?
So this goes back to the banking background, and kind of having some kind of. You don't have to be an expert before you open a business, right? But you have to have some sort of general, what's a good idea, what's a bad idea? When I opened up Something Borrowed, the bad idea was to go out there and get a bunch of monthly expense, right? And so the good idea is not to have that overhead. And so, I watch some of these shows on TV, and I'm not a car guy, but I watch one of these shows. I'm all about the busy flips cars or whatever. I think it's Fast and Loud. I think I watch it. And I like it for the business aspect, but his biggest thing that he talks about is your money is not made on the sale, you make it on the buy. So meaning on the front end, you buy it correctly, you're going to make money, whether you sell.
No matter what the sale.
No matter what the sale is.
Because in the car business, when it's done, it's only worth so much.
That's right. So
that 55 Thunderbird is only going to be worth so much.
Yeah, and so then just having a little bit of banking or expense background, again, you can be a stay-at-home mom and just understand, the expenses of your household to understand a business, right? So if you can save money on the expense side, guess what? It's the exact same profit margin you would get on the sale, right? So if I can drop my expense by 10%, I just made 10%. If I grow my business by 10%, I make 10%. It's the same. So we built the business, we being myself and my wife beating me over the head, is making sure we didn't have a whole lot of overhead. So in case something were to happen, right? So this is that point in time where if any of y'all are married, that you have to tell your wife, you were right, thank you, right? And put your head down and do what she tells you to do. So first off, so our overhead is very low. I made very good deals on our building rental or any kind of that kind of stuff. We made sure that we didn't over leverage anything. So we were prepared to go into it first off. Second is because we're what we call a private rental company, I don't have to carry the full-time staff all the time that just sit there hoping someone's going to walk in the door and rent something. So everything we have is planned, so I can plan for my expense too. So we were able to adjust that kind of thing. And then, quite frankly, we had to make the adjustment to go after more weddings. And because, like you said, the corporate and festival stuff's gone right now. I mean, it
St. Patrick's Day just canceled again for 2021.
Yeah, I would like to say I knew that 3 months ago.
I like to say last year I would have known that 3 months ago. We're not even in the conversation anymore, unfortunately.
And some of that's hard, but that leads me into something that's very exciting too. And I don't know if that's the direction that we necessarily want to go in, but when February 2020 hit, and it really, when the hammer came down, first off, January and February of 2020 was the best months we ever had. So in the rental business, we get the double whammy. So February is when the rental show is, which is when the rental people, we all buy our equipment in preparation for March, April. So what happened was a lot of us, thank God I was able to stop the purchases that I was doing. But other companies, especially the big boys, they go out, spend all their money in February in preparation to get the equipment to make all the money. So what happened is, because this 2020 thing was all of a sudden, companies went out, spent all their money, got equipment, then all the business canceled. Wow. So they didn't even have the nest egg that they had built to ride the storm because they went out and spent it.
Because they had just bought everything.
Right, and we had it teed up. We had a lot of money that we were buying new tents and stuff, and it was about to ship, and I was able to get on the phone and cut it. And so we actually were. I'll put that in the luck category there. And also to directly answer your question, we actually had a client or two, big client, that were doing big festivals that were backed by big companies, right? So they're not hurting for money. They actually paid us in full, knowing their festival was going to cancel. Now, postpone it. They go, and for the two that did it, they basically said, "We know you're going to need this money," and you're talking $30,000-$40,000 a pop.
Wow.
And they gave us the money and said, "Good luck. We'll get back to you when our festival's going to happen." Wow. So having the right clients,
the right relationship,
that would do that is the only reason they would do that. Because if you just knew their name and they were a number to you, that would not have happened. So we were very fortunate there. So you just make adjustments as you go. I've seen plenty of my friends that are not flexible, that just won't. I mean, usually we go with a $500 minimum when we're rolling. I mean, if it's not $500, it's probably not in our wheelhouse. We're not trying to do 1,000 events a month. We're trying to do 40. Right. And so, take that off. And I told my folks, I said, if they want us to clean the floors, we'll clean the floors. I mean, do whatever it is to survive. I mean, we actually we have a goal in our office, per month. And the goal for 2020 was survive. So we had to do what we had to do. But, at the end of the day, we were able to do that by adjusting the expense. We already didn't have a lot of expense because we built it right. And then with our relationships, we're able to kind of do that. But what I really wanted to get into on that was in February when the hammer came down, I don't know about y'all, I got depressed. Like I was sitting there going, woe is me, what's going on? And the depression hallway was just ready to walk down. Mm-hmm. And I'll toot my own horn and say, I acknowledged that and I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure this out. Go back to the investment business. The best time to invest are when things are down, right? Mm-hmm. And so, when shoes are on sale, that's when you buy them. You don't wait till they're expensive, right? And same deal. So while it's unfortunate that, everyone's getting hit, including us, there are good purchases out there and there's good things that can be done. So what I said was, how do I figure this out? What do I need to do? Okay, Lee, I need information. Yes, I was talking to myself.
by name, which is
Yeah,
important.
I said,
So you know who you're talking to.
yeah, and I got into smoking cigars. So I was on the back porch and I was smoking a cigar in the cold in February. And I said, what do I need? I said, I need information. Okay, how do I get information? You got to call everybody you can think of and just find out what's going on, right? So I did that. I called everybody I can think of. Even you, Bill, and said, let's go smoke cigars, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and that's kind of how that started. If for all full disclosure, Bill and I smoked cigars together. Yeah. But that came about because, hey, let's get these guys together. Let's interact. Let's figure things out. We need information, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was happy to say that one of the clients we have is Soda City, and Soda City got hurt real bad, right? And all event people did. Yeah. But they got hurt pretty bad too, and I was seeing things on Facebook of selling off some of their things and stuff like that. So I called them. I've set up the best event in Columbia, the Gervais Street Bridge Dinner. I've set up for years, and I called them and said, hey, what's your thoughts or what's going to happen? He goes, I don't think it'll survive. Like, I think it's done. Right. And I said, as in done? Not coming back. And he said, we can't afford it. Yeah. I mean, I said, sell it to me. Oh. I said, let me have it. I don't want it to die. It's one of the best events I can think of. It's all about Columbia and West Columbia working together. It's a good visual. It's just beautiful. And I really hated to see that go. And I really didn't expect, it just kind of came out of my mouth, just being kind of a sales guy, just kind of, sometimes you just say stuff. It's like the dog chasing the car. And I caught the car and I'm like, okay, now what? Because he said, sure, and I said, okay. And so then I had to figure that out, right? But again, my backstory was I used to manage festivals and stuff, so I had some of that knowledge. Mm-hmm. But it was risky back in those days. Why? Because if it didn't work out, you had all this expense. Well, now I own the rental company. Right. And so now if I do it in reverse order, something goes wrong, I'll just wave my hand and not have the expense, right? I'm not going to charge myself. And so we were able to form a nonprofit to put the event under. Mm-hmm. It's called Carolina Together, and its purpose is basically to rescue some of these festivals and to run them what I consider appropriately. Right. And that's what the Bridge Dinner is. So because of some of this, I was able to figure out something good. Mm-hmm. And for that 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months that things were really bad and everyone was locked down, I at least had something I could work on to keep my mind occupied when everything else was flat. Here's a nonprofit, getting it set up, attorneys and CPAs involved and all this, and getting this huge festival purchased and put under this. So now, and I've hired a great director that manages it and stuff. So now we actually manage some of these festivals and things that would not have come about because of COVID. So we were able to take a really bad thing and find something good out of it that would not have happened without this whole COVID thing. So coming out of it, you hope, just like investments, you buy it, still not worth crap, right? But then hopefully when things get back to normal, your investment will grow exponentially better than what it would if you bought it normal, right? So that's what I hope happens with these festivals.
So that leads to 2021. Where do you see it?
Yeah, so I'm very excited, first off, or I would have left the business. So again, what I've said is if you can survive 2020, first off, you can survive anything. I was wrong when I said the event world could not handle a spring canceled. Because most of us make all of our money. I know in the rental business, April we make all our money. Yeah. Like the rest of the year pays our bills. April makes our money. Mm-hmm. So we had I think we made $1,000 in April in 2020. And that was probably residual from March. And so we really had nothing. The second is October. So as soon as they canceled, they being whoever you want to say they is, I consider it the government, but they canceled the spring. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the fall. Okay. Then I said, well, I was wrong on that, but the event industry definitely can't handle having spring and fall canceled. Then fall was canceled. And I said, okay, I was wrong there too. So some of us are still limping away like, I'm not going into the good night, right? So I say if you have enough kahunas to make it through this, you can make it through anything. In 2021, I think will be just stellar if you made it through. we're all scarred up a little bit, but as long as you can still do it, because there's so much pent up demand, and everything goes back to the whole supply demand, right? So it's like everyone's been pent up. As soon as they get unleashed, like you'll see huge. I think you'll see huge festivals and things, which that's our business, and so I'm very excited. Again, goes back to Carolina Together now manages these festivals, and so now I can even have some influence on how big they are, or what kind, or where, or what day, those kind of things. So I think for something borrowed coming out of it, we're going to do real well. And I hope I get the problem with I need more tents, because that's easily solved. I can buy that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to end. Nice, positive, place to stop. It's great to talk to you, man. This is, what's funny is I love the idea that there are all kinds of ways of, we didn't say Instagram one time during this conversation, and we missed it. But
are you on Instagram?
Yeah. But I mean,
we might, because my office girls like to do it.
I think it's really important to understand in 2021 that there are all kinds of ways of reaching your audience and doing the things you need to do. And I think your analogy of you maintain relationships in business the way you maintain your friends. You call them every once in a while and make sure you keep in touch. I think that's so powerful. And Instagram has become such a sort of clean, separated thing from personality. And
there's no loyalty there on if you get business that way. There's no loyalty there, because then because again, my competitor does it. All I have to do is come in and drop it by $1, and I can buy that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if I'm friends with you, you're not going to go anywhere, because you got to see me again, and it's going to be awkward, right? And so.
Well, and all the pretty images start to look the same, right?
Well,
so,
there you go.
It's
or they may not be your images anyway, right?
Well, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. This has been great. Yeah, it's really, really cool to talk to you, and we'll see you somewhere down the road.